Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Begin! Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks.
Hello, it is I, Murph.
That's Murph.
Yes.
We've got a special guest here today because we are upgrading the brand new Final Fantasy X Precon. This is Counter Blitz. It's green, it's white, it's blue. It cares about counters of all kinds.
It's from Final Fantasy X.
And it's from Final Fantasy X. Sweet.
Sweet. We love Final Fantasy. We love Final Fantasy X. It's awesome. We have a copy right here for all video viewers.
You've been jamming Final Fantasy X, right?
I have been, yes. This was one that was a little bit of a blind spot for me. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, we're getting like Final Fantasy decks. I should probably play 10.
It's research.
Play 10. It's research. And boy, is it fun research. This game is pretty awesome. I like it a lot. I've really been involved with like the story, the characters, the gameplay. I've been really enjoying leveling up the characters, going through the sphere grid and everything, and just like kind of customizing my party to whatever I like to be. Except I don't like Blitzball. Honestly, not that good.
Doesn't like Blitzball.
Don't like Blitzball.
That look,
Sorry.
I don't know much about Final Fantasy, but I do know that's a hot take.
My bad.
Today we are going to be talking all about this Precon, everything you can get in it when you buy it off the shelf, and we're going to tell you the 10 cards you can add to it to get it in peak fighting shape. 10 cards
Final
to add,
Fantasy 10.
10 cards to take out.
Definitely, we did that on purpose, and it's not something we do every single time.
But before we get into this episode, if you want to pick up this Precon or any of the cards that we talk about here today, they're still on pre-order. We're doing this a little bit earlier than we normally do, but you can go to cardkingdom.com/command and check out their inventory. Baby, pick up this upgrade guide before the deck is even in your hands.
Ooh.
But when you shop at cardkingdom.com/command, you are helping us. You're telling Card Kingdom that we have listeners that buy Magic cards, which is really helpful for us. And Card Kingdom is a great place for you to shop as well because they've got a huge inventory. They've got a ton of different singles. They've got sealed product. They've got all the different versions and printings and foilings a burgeoning Magic player could want. I'm really picky about my printings, and I try and get as many of those cards in the same place so I'm not chasing down envelopes through the mail for weeks on end. So shopping at Card Kingdom works for me. cardkingdom.com/command. And once those cards are in your hand, you're going to need to protect them, keep them safe, keep them looking cool. Go to ultrapro.com/command and pick up some of their new products. They've got a hot new Mana 8 storage line that just came out. These are collapsible storage containers. The ones that are my favorite are long boxes. There's one for each color. So there's like a red long box, a white long box. So you can see on
nice.
the outright.
Ooh, that's
clean.
Nice.
Put it in your shelf. You know exactly which box is which. You don't have to write in the side in Sharpie. It's very cool. So go check those out on their website. Plus, if you sign up for their newsletter, you get notified anytime there's a flash sale or there's a cool new product drop like the Mana 8 storage line. And again, it helps the show when you go to ultrapro.com/command. The final way to support us, of course, is directly over at patreon.com/commandzone. You get to join our Discord, hang out, talk to me, talk to Murph. We're talking about Final Fantasy.
We love Final Fantasy.
We're right in the middle of spoiler season, so there's a lot of chatter on how to build these decks, what people are doing with these commanders, and you can join the party by joining our Patreon. Plus, we shout out one lucky patron every single podcast episode, and this one is dedicated to Tony Borth. Tony,
You rock.
you rock.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks for supporting the show. Let's get into it. We're talking about counters. We're talking about Blitz. Certainly not Blitzball because Murph hates it.
Well, maybe a little bit of Blitzball. I'll take a little bit of Blitzball.
We are going to upgrade this deck. We're going to give you 10 cards to add to really hone in on a lot of the synergies, make sure the deck is working as well as possible. But before we do that, we have to get to know the deck, which means meeting the face commander.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the face commander. First up is the hotly contested, is it Titus or Titus? Yuna's Guardian. It's a 3 mana, 3/3. It's green, a white, and a blue to cast, so it's Bant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may move a counter from target creature you control onto a second target creature you control. And it has a cheer ability. Whenever one or more creatures you control with counters on them deal combat damage to a player, you may draw a card and proliferate, but do this only once each turn.
Is him moving a counter from one player to another passing a Blitzball?
I think so.
That's cool.
It could be interpreted as a couple things. So the cheer ability, kind of just in the game, it actually just like buffs, I believe it's a little bit attack, a little bit of defense. So that's not exactly right, but you could interpret the moving the +1/+1 counters as just a blitz ball. It could be like you're moving along the sphere grid and you're just like leveling things up. So
I think that canonically means that +1 counters are balls.
+1/+1 counters are balls, or
the more
they're little
counters
orbs
you
on the
have on
sphere
them,
grid.
Yeah, well, sure.
Or, I mean, I guess orbs on the sphere grid are balls too.
Those are also balls.
It could be any and all of
Hydras carrying many balls.
I'm just imagining a
That's
Hydra.
where their
like,
power comes
every
from.
single +1/+1 counter is just an arm with a ball, and they're just like constantly
They're
trying
in
to
each of
juggle
their
it.
mouths.
Exactly.
Cute! I love this. Titus, you're the best. So this is a counters deck where it cares about moving counters around. It cares about proliferating them. So adding one more of each kind, which means this is good with +1/+1 counters. This is good with any kind of counter, really.
Yeah, pretty much, because it's just saying, hey, you have counters, I can do things with them. And so there's a lot of cool, tricky stuff that you could potentially do with moving things around, as well as just getting more with that proliferate ability. It's going to be only once each turn, regardless of how many creatures you're attacking and dealing combat damage with, but still, that's not nothing.
Your commander does a lot for you here. It moves counters around. It gives you more counters. It even draws cards. The one thing that Titus doesn't do is make counters. So that is a big thing to keep in mind as we go through this deck and take a look at all of the different stats.
Yep.
All right, up next, there's a backup commander, of course. Who is this lady?
Lady Yuna, Grand Summoner. It's 1, a green, a white, and a blue, so 4 mana total for a 1/5. It has Grand Summon, which is tap, add 1 mana of any color. When you next cast a creature spell this turn, that creature enters with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. And whenever another permanent you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, if it had 1 or more counters on it, you may put that number of +1/+1 counters on target creature.
Okay.
Who cares about +1/+1 counters actually can put +1/+1 counters on things, as opposed to Titus.
This is sort of the other side of the package, right? So this is the ramp, this is the counters, and it's some amount of board protection. So together they're a very powerful combination, but
which makes sense.
It does, like, depending on which one you put in the command zone, the 99 is going to look a little bit different. I would expect a Titus deck to have a ton of counters and like ways to make counters, so your commander's always working. And I would expect Yuna to be more of a like creatures that care about +1 counters, or that want to have a ton of +1/+1 counters.
Exactly. One's more a payoff for having counters already on things, and one is more like, hey, put more payoffs.
More of an enabler.
In this type of deck, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so those are the 2 optional commanders for this deck that come out of the box. They're both very powerful, both sides of a similar equation. Before we get into this upgrade, I do want to talk about what comes in the box if you just buy it off the shelf. So we like to talk about the reprint value around here. There's a lot of caveats for this one. Because these are so expensive, but also because the MSRP for these are set at $70. So that is what Wizards set it at. That is not necessarily what shops are selling it for. In fact, you can't really find this Precon for anywhere less than $80 is about the floor that I found. So I would expect this to be at least at time of recording. So it's like $80 to $110. We don't know what it's going to be like when you're watching this.
Could
the
fluctuate.
only number that we really have that's solid is that MSRP. So we are going to be doing all of our math based on that $70, but with the caveat of knowing that that's not really a realistic number to find this product, which is a bummer. Okay, all of that said, the total reprint value for this deck is
$153.50.
Yep. Pretty good.
Yeah.
All things considered, that is above the 2024 average reprint value of last year, which is $137.79. So well above that. We do have to keep in mind that this costs significantly more than the average Precon that came out last year. But we also keep in mind that this only takes into account the reprints of the deck.
Yes, not the new cards.
It doesn't include any of the new cards. It doesn't include any of the main set cards or the basics. So it's only accounting for 66 of the cards in the Precon itself. And of course, all of those values are taken at time of recording. They will go down once these lists are announced because that is how reprints work. So $153 is not terrible for a certain amount of value.
Definitely not.
So in order to get a better grasp on that ratio of how much you spent to what the reprint value is, we've been calculating a bang for your buck value, where you take the reprint value and divide it by what you spent on it. In this case, it's the MSRP, but you could use whatever number you find available on the shelf. So if you buy it at $70 and the value is $153.50, you get $2.19 worth of reprints for your $1 cash. That is well below the average bang for your buck value in 2024, which was $2.75.
Not the worst thing in the world.
Not the worst. And you have to consider that all of these have brand new art. All of these are Final Fantasy themed, and it is the only place that you're going to be able to get most of these cards, and Wizards knows that.
Yeah, in this version as well for all the reprints.
Right. So what I've said for all of these precons, and I think holds true for this deck as well, is if you're looking to pick up a precon for the reprint value,
probably this isn't the place to do it.
This isn't the one for you. But if you're a Final Fantasy fan, if you're a Final Fantasy X fan specifically, these decks are obviously a dream. And the reprint value isn't going to give you a great idea of what the value is.
Exactly. We also did a slightly more, let's say, more realistic calculation. So let's just say $90. It's about average of what you can find it for, again, at time of recording. You get $1.71 worth of reprints for your $1 spent, which isn't great. Yeah. So, yeah.
Not ideal, but there's a lot of cool new cards. If you're a Final Fantasy fan, this is obviously the place to be. That being said, there are some notable reprints. We like to talk about all the ones that are worth $5 or more, starting with this first one, which I did not realize was so expensive.
Yeah, this one's really crept up. This is one from the Streets of New Capenna Commander deck, which...
My favorite!
I love Streets of New Capenna Commander. We constantly talk about how cool all the cards from this are. And the card that has been reprinted is Damning Verdicts. That's the 3 white sorcery, destroy all creatures with no counters on them. Very simple effects, but because it is something that just goes in so many decks, because counters is a very, very common theme in Commander, there's just so many applications, and it's really only gotten the one printing from Streets of New Capenna Commander. So.
Sitting at $23 right now, so a lot of value in that card on its own. Up next is one of the most famous +1 counter cards of all time.
Yeah. Walking Ballista. That's the XX creature enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. You can remove a +1/+1 counter from it to deal a damage to any target, and you can also pay 4 mana to put a 1/1 counter on the creature. This is a great combo card. It's even fine as just like a fair put +1/+1 counters on a deck. So I do love seeing it here, and keeping that price down, always excellent. Love that.
Sitting at $15 right now, so a very solid reprint.
Yeah, and it's even got the art of a little mini bus.
Up next is also from the New Capenna Commander, the same precon, catching another reprint here.
Resourceful Defense, which is a 2 and a white enchantment. Whenever a permanent you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on target permanent you control, and you can pay 5 mana to move any number of counters from target permanent you control onto a second target permanent you control. So it does feel very like Titus themes, like kind of doing similar things that the Commander is doing.
Moving counters around, it's lets you do it at instant speed for a price, of course, but also if you get board wiped, it's a great place to store your counters until a later date. Sitting at $12 right now, Resourceful Defense. This next one is one of my favorite cards to put in a green deck. It's big, it's bad.
It's Bane of Progress. That's the 6 mana creature. When this creature dies, when this creature enters, destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Put a 1/1 counter on this creature for each permanent destroyed this way. I love artifacts, and so I hate seeing this card on the other side of the battlefield, because it usually means I'm going to be having a bad time. But Bane of Progress always cleans up house whenever it hits the battlefield.
Very powerful. This is a lot of +1 counters as well. It's currently sitting at $11. Hasn't been reprinted in a while.
Yeah, we'll always take a Bane in Progress reprint. Next up, this one I was surprised that was a little expensive. Generous Patron. It's a 2 and a green. When this creature enters support 2, meaning you can put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 other target creatures. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a creature you don't control, you draw a card.
This one's interesting in the deck. It's sitting at $9.50, so
that's what I was surprised about.
A very strong reprint for sure. A curious card in the deck because you don't have a ton of ways to get counters on your opponent's creatures.
Titus specifically says things you control. Resourceful Defense says
you don't want to pass
only
the
things
ball.
You control. Yeah.
You don't want to pass the ball to the other team. That's an interception.
No, then they get it, and then they can make a run for the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't want to do that.
Generous Patron, a good reprint nonetheless.
Yep. Next up, 3 visits. You know it, you love it. Search library for a forest card, put on the battlefield, then shuffle. This one is climbing back up. It's about $8.50 now, so we'll take that as often as we can see it.
Absolutely.
Gyre Sage is a 1 and a green. Evolve whenever a creature enters. If that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature, a creature you control that is, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. You can tap to add a green for each 1/1 counter on this creature. Cool little mana dork.
Doesn't add mana by itself, but it's great with your commander that can move counters around.
Oh, yeah. And this one's sitting at $7.50.
Whoosh.
So again, great to see. Farewell is a great reprint for whites. Choose one or more, exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, and exile all graveyards. This is one that I think has quickly become a staple, much to many players' chagrin.
Yeah, Farewell just isn't a fun card to have resolved, but it will get you out of basically any spot.
Yeah, you're like, I just need stuff gone. Farewell will do it.
Yeah, it says goodbye to just about every amount of progress that you've made in the game so far.
Yeah, the name Farewell is quite apt, and this one is sitting at $6.50.
$6.50. There are 8 cards that are worth $5 or more in this deck, so a decent number of reprints. Those are nice, strong cards to have with Final Fantasy art. I know, like, sometimes it's not about the value for the universes beyond precons. It's just like, how powerful and how thematic can I make a deck out of this? So if you want to build a Tidus deck that isn't based on the precon, you want as many powerful cards in it as possible to make it still feel thematic and Final Fantasy X-ish.
Exactly.
So,
and I know
nice.
there's a lot of people that will look at these cards and say, hey, I already have these decks. I'm not trying to build a new deck around any of these commanders or anything, but I want to bling out my deck with Final Fantasy themed stuff.
Yeah.
And just having the playable cards like 3 Visits, Walking Ballista, Farewell, great to see.
Really nice. All right, that's the financial breakdown of this precon. We're going to move into the mechanical breakdown so you guys can get to know what the deck is actually trying to do. We like to do that by checking out the stats. Sick. Let's do it. We like to start with the nuts and bolts, the things that make every commander deck work, and see what kind of vegetables they're including here. And it also gives you an idea for what the deck is trying to do. So we're going to start off with the basics.
Yeah, so first up, it has 8 pieces of ramp in the deck.
A little low for what I'd expect from a green deck, honestly. But it's possible if you put Yuna in the command zone that you have plenty of reliable ramp, that you don't actually need this much ramp.
Very true. 7 pieces of card advantage, also very low. But like you said, if you have Tidus in the command zone, that can very much help mitigate the fact that we are a little bit low on card draw, because the commander literally says, draw a card on it. And so you don't need quite as much consistency. I'd still love to see a little bit more card draw.
I think this is a bit low.
But that can definitely help with that. So that might have been the thinking with the putting together of this deck. We got 14 targeted disruption spells.
That's a lot for a deck like this. I would expect a counters-based deck to be a little bit more front foot, a little less reactive.
Yes.
So honestly, it's like 2 or 3 more than I would anticipate. But I'm never really feeling bad when the disruption is on the higher end for these.
Very much agreed. It helps you be able to play at tables, because if you can do something to interact with what your opponents are doing, then that is helping you ideally get towards a win and not die. We got 5 mass disruption spells, including the nice Farewell.
And the Damning Verdict.
Yeah, exactly. So that's also a little bit on the high side, but some are, like you said, a little bit one-sided.
Yeah, so this number includes, it'll also include the Bane of Progress. It includes any cards that's you spend 1 card to get rid of a bunch of things. So it's some amount of board wipes, but it's also some amount of like mass bounce or like...
it's a board clear, quote unquote.
Yeah, I think 5 is a reasonable number for this mass disruption. Finally, there are 37 lands in the deck, which is a hair lower than I tend to expect, especially in a deck that you're trying to cast a lot of spells because you're drawing cards in the command zone. You want to make sure you're hitting your land drop every turn. The other thing I was thinking is your commander, if you have Tidus in the command zone, he's a 3 mana, 3 color commander. So you really need consistency with your colors here.
Yeah.
And I do think this mana base is pretty capable of that. There are 9 basic lands in it, and 14 is the vibe for tapped lands. There are 9 lands that always come in tapped, which is honestly a little high for a 3-mana commander. I think I would want that to come down a couple if we were spending some time on the mana base today, which we are not.
It's expected for a precon, though.
Yeah, this is one of the worst mana bases, actually, of these precons. It has like 2 or 3 more tapped lands than some of the other decks. So
I guess they're trying to slow it down a little bit because of the fun thing about the counters is like once you get them going,
it's pretty good.
Oh boy, do they get going.
Yeah. So if you were going to spend some time on the mana base, I think looking at the tapped lands and seeing how you could adjust things is an option for you to go. And I would probably add 1 or 2 more lands as well. All right, now we're going to look at the statistics that is more specific to the deck, find out what the deck is actually doing as a counters deck.
Yeah, so we've got 35 things that deal with +1/+1 counters.
So these are ones that just make +1/+1 counters, which is a ton, which is great.
Good. That means that your deck will actually function out of the box. Awesome, we love that.
Yeah, your commander cares about counters but doesn't make them himself, so you need to rely on a lot of consistency in your 99 to have cards that actually make counters so your commander can do the thing. So 35 is a great number. Happy to see that as high as it is. There are 6 cards that deal with other counters, so this could be lore counters, this could be flying counters, like keyword counters, those kind of things. So it clearly has much more of a focus on +1/+1 counters as opposed to narrow counters. And finally, there's only 5 cards in the deck that proliferate, so despite your commander saying proliferate and proliferating himself, the deck isn't really focused on cranking up those numbers as fast as possible. They're really leaning on Tidus to do that.
Yeah.
Finally, we've been taking one additional deck stat lately. This has an average mana value of 3.06, which is pretty strong, honestly. That's a nice low curve. That means that you're going to be able to double spell reasonably quickly. That means that there isn't like too many big clunky things that you have to worry about.
Yeah, the thing that I ended up noticing when going through the deck stats was that there's a lot of stuff at the 3 and 4 drop slot. And so you're probably just going to get stuck on those, and the 3 drop slot is always a little bit awkward because that's what Tidus is at. He's at 3, and so you're always going to have to make like a kind of awkward decision of like, all right, do I play this guy first? Do I play another card in my hand first? Things like that. And yeah, it's not the worst because you have all these tap lands, so you're probably just going to be like, well, I'm playing a tap land on 4 because that's what I got, and I'll play another 3 drop.
That's what I have, and it's going to be a little weird in the first few turns.
Yep.
But that is something that we can keep in mind while we're going into this upgrade. I do want to talk about some of the goals you had when we were doing this upgrade. Starting with, of course, like who did we decide as the face commander as the commander for this deck?
Yeah, so I think we got to go with Tidus. Like, Tidus is the main character of the game. He's the protagonist. He's on the cover of the box. Unit's on the back, though. I just noticed. I was like, the back of the box kind of looks like the art in this. How about that? But I think it also just does the most with this deck because there's so many things that already make counters. That is something that we can lean into. And because it has card draw on it, it's a little bit less mana in order to cast straight out of the gates. And it is doing that really fun thing. I think the moving counters around, trying to be more tricky with it, is just a more fun thing to do, at least from my perspective. Sure. But that's obviously a little bit more subjective, but I think that most people are going to want to keep him as the commander. I
think that's fair. It's a Final Fantasy X deck, so that it feels like it would be a crime to put Tidus anywhere else. Okay. So there are some changes we do want to make to this deck to make it play a little bit more consistently. The first thing that you alluded to a little bit already is trying to smooth out that curve a little bit so that your commander is always doing the thing.
Yeah, because what would be the most ideal is because Tidus himself just says whenever one or more creatures you control with counters on them deal combat damage to a player, he doesn't have to attack in order to do the thing. So trying to get stuff out early that has counters on them so that then on 3, you can play Tidus and then already be drawing cards, I think is something that the deck doesn't really do much out of the box, but is a very powerful thing that you probably want to index more to than what the deck's currently doing.
Right. So you want more 2-drops that come in with their own +1/+1 counter.
Yes, exactly.
So as soon as Tidus comes down, you can trigger him right away and get that card draw going. And then the other side of it that we notice is this deck is really, really focused on the +1/+1 counter thing, but Tidus can do some neat stuff with other kinds of counters.
Yeah.
So you had a couple of suggestions for cool counter cards to add that start to move some more powerful counters around in the mix.
Yeah, I think it's very tempting to try to go all the way to the fun counters thing and kind of like ignore the +1/+1 counter thing, but I think that's just so core to the deck. Don't take that out, leave that as your primary core. But that doesn't mean we can't have some fun.
A little
right?
treat?
We got a little treat. A little Final Fantasy X Tidus treat.
So before we move on to the actual upgrade, we've got, I find that like finding the cards in the deck already that are the best cards in your hand, that feel the best, that have the most synergy. Once you understand what those best cards are, you can get a better idea for what cards you want to add to the list later. So let's talk about the cards that are already in the box that feel the absolute strongest.
Yeah, both of these deal with doing the fun counters thing, which I think does say a lot. But Luminous Broodmoth, that's whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it.
Ooh.
So if there's something that you don't want to die, you can bring it back with a flying counter on it, and then with your commander, just move that counter off, put it on something else, and there you go. It's not ever going to leave as long as Luminous Broodmoth is on the battlefield.
Plus, flying counters are a really powerful thing to just have to distribute. Even if your board gets wiped and you lose a bunch of your flyers, if you've got resourceful defense, you can store a bunch of flying counters and start moving things around in the later game.
Because then even if people are like, okay, that Luminous Broodmoth is doing so much work, we got to get rid of it. Great, they got rid of it. You have 3 flying counters just chilling that you can then, when it comes to late game, just move on to whatever your biggest guys are and start doing a ton of damage.
Very
so
cool.
It's just very, very flexible, very resilient card that will pretty much always, every time you see it, you're going to be happy about it. Also, with this one, this was one of Rachel's favorite. Summon Ixion.
I didn't even pick this one. Murph picked it.
I picked it because it is legitimately good. It is also awesome. It's the pony. It's a Saga Unicorn.
Yes!
2 whites.
Yes!
I'll only read the first chapter because that's the one that I think matters the most. Exile target creature an opponent controls until this saga leaves the battlefield. So this is a 3-mana card that you can put a chapter counter or a lore counter on it. And then you can remove that with your commander. Put on something else. Doesn't matter what that other thing is. And then next turn, you get chapter 1 counter. You exile something else. And then your commander can get rid of that counter.
And your pony will never die.
Your pony never dies, and you are exiling something every single turn. Whatever the scariest thing is, it's just gone.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nuts, because it's a very low investment. Like, it's 3 mana for your commander and 3 mana for this guy. That is not a high investment for removing things every turn.
That's a very powerful engine on a very pretty card. When I saw this card for the first time, I don't know if it'll make the episode or not, but when I saw it on game nights, I ran around the room because it's a pony that is actually good.
You're like,
and
pony,
can go
whoa!
in my 5-color pony deck. I got very excited.
It's so cool.
And it's super pretty.
It's also one of my favorite summons just in the game.
Nice.
Because it's got like lightning attacks, and you can do a lightning attack at itself, and it'll just heal itself, which is pretty awesome. Because that's
Why would you lightning attack itself?
Because the way that's the elemental damage works in the game is that if you are like kind of immune, or if you're like composed of that element, if that type of attack goes at you, then it actually heals you instead of doing damage to you.
Oh, sure.
So like with a Freet or something, he's the flame guy. So if you do a fire attack at him, well, that's actually just going to heal him instead.
Okay.
And so you have to be cognizant of that. But
You
it's
got to
just
send it somewhere else.
it's just really fun to be like, all right, giant lightning attack, self. All right, we're healing. We're healing the lightning pony.
Nice. Anytime Magic can get a little closer to Pokemon, I'm kind of in.
We have turned this entirely into a Pokemon podcast.
I like a little animals. All right, we got the pony reference in the episode. I love this card. I think this deck is very powerful already, but we've got 10 cards we're going to add to it to make it a little bit more consistent, a little bit more efficient, and we will get to those after a few words from our sponsors.
Howdy! It's me, Kellen, pretty loop protagonist of Magic the Gathering. My relationship with my dad, Oko, is complicated. But that all changes this Father's Day, because I'm getting him a gift that'll get any father's attention. RAYCON wireless earbuds. I use my RAYCONs every single day, so I know my old man's gonna love them too. Whether he's working out those abs or robbing a train instead of coming to my piano recital, he'll be able to bring his favorite tunes wherever he goes. And RAYCON's latest model is better than ever, with a 32-hour battery life, multi-point connectivity, and a quick charge function to get 90 minutes of juice from just 10 minutes of charging. They even come with active noise cancellation, which Pop seemed really excited about for some reason. Plus, RAYCONs start at just half the price of other premium brands, so I got him a pair in each of his colors, green and blue. Well, here you go, Dad. What do you think?
Kellen, they're perfect. I love you, son.
Oh my gosh, it worked! Okay, deep breaths. Oh my gosh.
Go to buyraycon.com/command to get 15% off site-wide. Right now, Raycon is offering up to 15% off site-wide when you go to buyraycon.com/command. Again, that's buyraycon.com/command.
You know, with all these MagicCons now, we've been doing a lot of traveling.
That's true, but hey, at least the flight to Vegas is quick.
Flight? I'm making a drive.
That's like over 4 hours, Jimmy.
Yeah, but that's over 4 hours of listening to audiobooks. I've been working my way through the Wheel of Time series on Audible. So instead of endless Nevada desert, I'll be on an epic fantasy adventure.
Wait, you're listening to The Wheel of Time?
Mm-hmm.
That's like my favorite series ever. I've been listening to Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, which is actually one of the titles included for free with the Audible membership.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and even with how busy my schedule is, Audible's app makes it easy to just throw it on when I'm taking a walk or driving to work.
Plus, as a member, you can choose one title a month to keep from the whole catalog. And they've got over 1 million things in there.
Oh, that explains why you're planning a drive that's like months from now.
Yeah, actually, that's more of a Wheel of Time thing, because I'm only on book 2.
Oh, so I guess you're just driving to all the MagicCons until like 2032 then.
Yeah. How many hours does it take to get to Atlanta?
Probably about a third of a Wheel of Time book.
Oh, nice.
Start listening and discover what's beyond the edge of your seat. New members can try Audible now free for 30 days and dive into a world of new thrills.
Visit audible.com/command or text command to 500-500. That's audible.com/command or text command to 500-500.
Welcome, cast fans. Tygam Master Opportunist here from the hit meditation podcast, Just Sky's the Limit. I know I appear calm and collected now, but when I first started casting, running a business felt overwhelming. Thank goodness I found Shopify, who helped me manage a flurry of questions and challenges so I could focus on getting out 2 casts a turn. I mean week. With Shopify, there's no reason to suspend your dreams of starting a business. They have true mastery when it comes to managing inventory, shipping, returns, and more. Plus, they can aid you with tools such as ready-to-use templates for your online store. It's like you have a whole monastery of marketing monks on your side, ready to easily create social media campaigns with unmatched commercial prowess. Shopify is the platform behind 10% of e-commerce in the US, including my hated rivals, the Command Zone. They just make good stuff. So take it from a master opportunist. With Shopify, your opportunity is now.
Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/TCZ. Go to shopify.com/TCZ. Again, shopify.com/TCZ.
Browsing for some new tech?
Yeah, I'm building Tiamat and ARCHIDEKT. Ooh, how about Zergo and Ojutai?
Did you just drag and drop that card image directly into your deck?
Yep, with ARCHIDEKT, you can drag and drop card images from EDHREC or Scryfall directly into the deck list. No typing required.
That is so cool.
Ooh, okay, check this out. I'm gonna drag and drop Dragon Storm into the deck, and then boom, I'm gonna drop a bunch of dragons on the battlefield.
A 9-drop, huh? Seems ambitious.
It was just for the pun. ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/commandzone.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking about the Counter Blitz Precon from Final Fantasy X. We are doing it. We're adding 10 cards. Excuse me. We're adding X cards.
Yeah.
Using a budget of $50. So we picked 10 cards out that fit in that budget to make it leaner, meaner,
More fun?
More machiner, and also more fun.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that this deck is working as well as possible, especially because you spend a lot of money on these. We want to make sure that you're getting your game out of it as well. So we've alluded to this first section already. We want to make sure that there's plenty of 2-drops that have their own counters, that make counters. So let's start there.
Yeah, so this is kind of the eat your Wheaties. Just get the engine going as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. So we have a few things that we wanted to include. Merfolk Skydiver I really like. It's only 2 mana, green and a blue flyer. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Probably going to be itself. and you can just pay 5 mana to proliferate, which that part, if you want to do it, great. If you just have extra mana late, the deck can definitely use a proliferate. That's not nothing, but it's mostly just the fact that it is a flyer. So not only does it come down early, but it's likely going to be able to get in for damage every single turn. Because
new cards.
Yeah. If you can't get those +1/+1 counters growing fast enough, or if somebody puts out like a bunch of chump blockers and the board's pretty glutted, and there's just a lot of stuff out there, it's pretty gunked up, like
turns off your draw engine
completely.
Like, you need something that can reliably get through to draw you cards from your commander.
Yes.
This is sneaky one of the best cards in my Hawkball list, where it's
yeah.
like, it's not one of those merfolk that like does all these things, but it's huge. And it's a ridiculous threat that gets in. It doesn't look fancy.
Yeah, it can wear counters so well. Like you're proliferating every single turn. All right, it starts as a 2/2, then a 3/3, then a 4/4, and then you can just start moving counters to it more if you want, and it'll just be a big flyer, really fast.
Plus, it's only 25 cents and is really gonna do some work for your curve. So pick up a Merfolk Skydiver. Yeah. Along the same lines, this next one is one of the best 2-drops that distributes counters. And one of my favorite Magic cards is Luminarch Aspirant. 1 and a white for a creature human cleric. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It's a 1/1.
So good. You just throw it on itself for the first one, and then the next turn after that, turn 3, you play your commander, and then you probably still just put a 1/1 counter on itself, and then it's a 3/3. Sure, it doesn't have that evasion that the Merfolk Skydiver does, but it's a 3/3. On turn 3, there's probably somebody you can hit, and then it's just going to keep snowballing from there. And if you end up putting anything else that is a potentially better wearer of counters, then it's going to just start putting counters on that. It also just is able to be like, all right, you're not entering with counters, I'll put 1 counter on you. You're not entering with counters, I'll also put a counter on you. And then that proliferate from the commander just ends up being stronger and stronger as a result.
Good early game, it's good late game, it's fairly innocuous in Commander. This card is just really powerful.
You don't have to pay mana in order to do the thing, it'll just do the thing.
It's so generous with the ball. It passes counters to anybody who wants it.
Here you go.
Very generous. 75 cents for a Luminarch Aspirant, and very good in this deck, I think.
Yeah. Next up, along similar lines, but hopefully helps us draw a little more cards as well. We have the Prodigy Twins, as I like to call them.
Yeah, they get back-to-back Prodigies.
Back-to-back Prodigies. First up, Polywog Prodigy. That's the 2-mana Evolve one, and whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell with mana value less than its power, you draw a card, and it starts as a 1/3. So, again, same thing. You play it on 2, play your commander on 3, it'll automatically evolve, and then you can start whacking with it. And then, proliferate, it'll become a 3-power thing, and then at that point, anything 2 or less that your opponent's cast, you'll just draw a card off of.
That is the big threshold, is getting to the point where anytime they cast a Rampant Growth or a 3 Visits or a Talisman, you start drawing cards. That's where Polywog Prodigy starts to feel really busted. So any deck that can accelerate that evolve process on the Polywog Prodigy is going to love it. It is on the spendier side at $16, but it does double duty for this deck, being a 2-mana card that works in your curve very well, and it ups that card advantage number.
I think that's very important for this Eat the Wheaties section. And the other Prodigy is Ingenious Prodigy. I love this card. This one's X and a blue with Skulk. It's a 0/1, enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Ingenious Prodigy has 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you can remove 1 from it and draw a card. Pretty sick. So, again, play it on 2, as like, same with all of these ones. And then you don't do the thing first.
Yeah.
Because it's a May ability.
Right.
And so you can say, nope, I'm not going to do that. So then you attack with it, you hit, proliferate, get another counter on it, and then the turn after that, then you're just getting an extra card every single time. And it's going to be a 1-power thing, so it's going to go under basically everything because of that Skulk ability. Yeah,
it's a very strong kind of evasion, and it's a great way to turn your counters into cards like the Polywog Prodigy. So this does, again, both of the things that your deck is looking to do on like a pretty innocuous body that you can pick up for pretty cheap. This one's just a $1, and he's adorable.
So cute.
I love the art on this thing.
Nice little human wizard.
Yeah, so Ingenious Prodigy going to go a long way. All of those 4 cards are 2-drops that you can cast before your commander, make their own counters, and get your engine online as soon as Tidus hits the battlefield.
Yeah, and if you're trying to go beyond the 10 in, 10 out, then indexing a little bit more into this category, I think will push the power level of this deck. But again, that's to your own personal preference as far as how you want to play the deck.
Up next, we're going to talk about some counters that are sweet to add in the mix. They're great to proliferate. They're great to pass around. And this first one does a lot of work in the deck all by himself.
This is where we start to get into the cool stuff category. Tekuthal, Inquiry Dominus.
A little bit of a flavor break.
All of these are flavor breaks.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I guess a human wizard is not the
fits in
craziest
okay.
one. Yeah. But yeah, Phyrexians are probably not the most in flavor for Final Fantasy X. But
he's very good.
He's very good. He's a 3/5 flyer for 4. If you would proliferate twice instead. Well, good thing the commander says proliferate on it.
Incredible.
Meaning you're going to be doing that every single turn, hopefully. And then you can pay 1 Phyrexian mana. So you can do 3 mana. You can do 2 mana and 2 life, or 1 mana and 4 life. Those are your options. Remove 3 counters from among other artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control to put an indestructible counter on this guy. So
Woo! Indestructible counter machine.
you just leave 1 mana up if you want. And then once you start proliferating things on it, the amount of counters you have on things ends up becoming pretty darn trivial. And so you can just be like, well, they all have 4 counters on them. I'll just remove 1 from each of those, and then I can put an indestructible counter on this guy. If somebody tries to remove him, you can do it proactively, you can do it reactively, however you want to do it. And you can put more than 1 indestructible counter on this guy. Because you can start moving these around with Titus.
And you can proliferate it.
You can proliferate them.
So if you do this before you hit, proliferate, you get 2 more indestructible counters.
Just put them wherever you want.
And then next turn you can start moving those around.
Pretty sick.
It's pretty hot.
Pretty sick.
Tekuthal is great in the deck. Not to mention, he flies.
Yeah.
I did not remember that Tekuthal flew.
He's also just a great wearer of +1/+1 counters.
Very silly that this thing flies. But Tekuthal, great in the deck. $10, but is
Totally
going to very much be worth it. And to get you some indestructible counters to pass around.
Yeah.
Up next, I like this card a lot. This is from Duskmourn. It's Reluctant Role Model. 1 and a white. It's a 2/2 creature human survivor. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Reluctant Role Model is tapped, put a flying, lifelink, or +1/+1 counter on it. Then, whenever Reluctant Role Model or another creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, put those counters on up to 1 target creature.
So this one, I saw this and I was like, oh, this one feels like this could work well in the 2-drop slot, comes with a counter. It's not quite fast enough in order to do that. You have to put it down, ideally on 2. Then you can attack with it. And then after it has attacked on the second main phase, you put the counter on it, which is a little bit too late for Titus to do anything. But the flexibility of this card is, I think, where it shines the most. Because once you've done that, probably going to put a flying counter on it so that then it can keep attacking every single turn. And there's just so many different types of counters that you can put on it. You can put the 1/1 counters. You put flying. You can put lifelink counters on this. And just this 1/2 mana card being able to generate all those different types of counters just makes your board so much more flexible.
And there's a lot of ways to put +1/+1 counters on creatures that don't have them. So this thing will get big enough that it can freely attack in the early and in the late game. And then once it's going, you're making flying counters, you're making lifelink counters. You can put together a real ridiculous army there. And if they die, so the one thing about Reluctant Role Model is it's not great through a board wipe. Like if everything gets destroyed, you don't really have a place to move those counters around. But it does mean that you're a little bit more open to attacking. If something does die, you can move those counters, and it gives you a little bit of protection for single target removal spells, which make a ton of sense in a deck that is making big stuff and sending them around.
Yeah, and just saying, hey, this card doesn't protect you from literally every bit of removal under the sun is fine, because this thing's 2 mana. Remember that. It gives you all these counters and potential for some disruption or for some protection from removal, all for the low price of 2 mana. 1 and a white.
Yep.
Really good.
And 50 cents. Reluctant Role Model, a great add to this deck.
Yep. Next up, another flavor brick. But that's okay.
But a good one.
This card's sick.
It is.
Arwen, Mortal Queen. 1 a green and a white for a 2/2. It enters the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it. All right. We're already coming with the indestructible counters.
Yes.
But you can pay a 1, remove an indestructible counter from Arwen. Another target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Put a 1/1 counter and a lifelink counter on that creature, and a 1/1 counter and a lifelink counter on Arwen. This thing makes counters so dang fast.
Yeah, this thing's a house. I've played against it in 1v1, and when it hits the battlefield, you're like,
what do I do against
what am I
this?
supposed to do? Like, they can have up to 2 indestructible creatures this turn. It's really a menace. But in this deck, it makes indestructible counters, it makes lifelink counters, it makes +1 counters, and it's a great body to wear them. That lifelink that in the late game is enough to swing games. It like to break them wide open, where you're just like, yeah, I've got enough lifelink that I can swing out with my huge creatures, gain a bunch of life, and I'm not even worried about the crackback.
Yeah, and we were talking a little earlier about how it's a little bit awkward for 3-drops, too many 3-drops to be in this deck because your commander's at 3. Well, just think of this commander as a 4-drop because then you have that 1 mana in order to just start doing things kind of whenever you want.
To protect her and something else, yeah.
Maybe after combat, once you've proliferated that indestructible counter already, like, there's just, again, so much flexibility, so much fun stuff that you can do with this card.
Yeah, Arwen definitely down. Better to come down after your commander. She's only $4.50 right now, and this card is very strong.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at that because it's a mythic.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Love it.
It still gets it's in the Vintage Cube right now, which is like, it's real.
Time to play Vintage Cube is what I'm hearing.
All right, we've got one more category of cards to add here, and this is just sort of like more counters, more benefit. They're just hit the gas type of cards, and this first one is kind of absurd in the deck.
Once again, this is a 2-mana card.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind as we discuss this. It's a 2/2 with Vigilance. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on it, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. This ability triggers only once each turn. Okay, doesn't seem that crazy, but then you realize your commander is able to move a +1/+1 counter on this, again, assuming you have created a +1/+1 counter from something else, which the deck is very good at doing. As long as you do that, put it on this pup, you're now getting a 1/1 counter on every single creature you have.
For free.
Oh,
and it has Vigilance.
Did I mention if you hit, then you proliferate everything?
Which is ridiculous. So now all your creatures have +1 counters on them, and it can proliferate. The Generous Pup can't trigger a second time, but it's already done the damage.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, this card is absurd because moving +1 counters counts as putting +1 counters. So if you're taking a counter from one place and putting it elsewhere, that is a put trigger and will trigger the Generous Pup, making everything bigger. Gee whiz, what a dog.
Yeah, it turns your commander into, you can put a 1/1 counter from this onto this, into, you're just generating a bajillion +1/+1 counters.
Yeah. At the beginning of combat, everything gets a +1 counter. When you hit, everything gets a +1 counter. Also, you draw a card. Pretty good. $8 for the Generous Pup, but look at his face.
He's so cute.
Isn't he worth it?
He looks so worth it.
This is from the Jumpstart product, so it's not super readily available.
That's why prices are a little bit wacky, but yeah.
Up next is a big old whale. It's a Dreamtide whale for $2.75. This is 2 and a blue for a whale. It's a 7/5. It's a 3-mana
7/5. We'll take that any day of the week.
With Vanishing, too. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, proliferate. So, this is a proliferate engine. This is an incredibly powerful body, and you're not going to have any problem keeping those Vanishing counters on your whale.
Yeah, because either your opponents are doing one of two things. They're trying to play around it and not playing the second spell each turn, which means you're slowing them down a ton. But that's okay because you can still proliferate when it gets back to your turn because your commander does that.
Yep.
And you can also
cast
trigger
2 spells to trigger it. Yeah, you'll be proliferating twice a turn, no problem. The only reason, your opponents won't be casting 2 spells is because they can't give you another proliferate trigger. Your stuff is too big already.
Exactly. Like at base level, you're like, oh, the proliferate trigger only, you can put the Vanishing counters on it to keep it alive. Okay, that's good. And then you realize, wait a minute, literally every other aspect of my deck plays with +1 counters and just counters in general. And so that proliferate is just going to get out of control so fast. And again, this thing's 3 mana. Like the rate for these cards is kind of ridiculous.
It's absurd.
So
I mean,
crazy.
This card feels very pushed to have a creature that big in blue.
It doesn't need to be that big.
Yeah, I don't know why it's that big, honestly.
Because it's a whale. Whales are huge. Unless they're from Segovia.
Make it a fish. I don't know why nobody said it had to be a whale.
True.
They said it was a whale.
It says on the type line. It has to be a
You're
whale.
right. You're right.
There's no way around it.
Them's the rules.
We're all trying to find the guy who did this.
Dreamtime whale, $2.75. Very good little pet. And this final edition, I think, might be the single worst
Flavor.
like
It's the biggest flavor fail.
no, yes, but he's the one that always pokes his head into decks where he doesn't belong.
Yes.
Because he's so good, I feel like he just shows up and he's like, in your Merfolk deck, I'm Danny Pink.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've had
Human man.
Danny Pink as far as like part of our upgrade guides for multiple deck upgrades.
He was
now.
definitely in the Hawkball upgrade.
Yeah.
And now he's also in Final Fantasy. He's that
we
good.
We did that. We did the Hawkball upgrade.
Yes, you did it.
Yeah, we put this guy here. We put him there twice.
We're all trying to find the guy. Danny Pink's just a really powerful magic card, and the flavor fail is worth it, honestly. It's 3 and a blue for a legendary creature, human, soldier, advisor with mentor. He's a 4/3. It says creatures you control have, whenever one or more counters are put on this creature for the first time each turn, draw a card.
Cracked in half.
Truly absurd. It's a very powerful. It's a very powerful gentleman. In any sort of +1 counter deck, you have so much control over when counters go on creatures. When with proliferating,
Yeah,
you're going to draw for 1 for each creature you control with a counter on it.
Moving counters with the first ability, like it is so easy, so easy to just draw like 4 cards on this from this guy every single turn.
Yeah, we were a little worried about the card advantage in this deck, and we are worried no longer. Danny's got it covered for just $6. You will
Also,
have full
he
hand.
has mentor, so he can put counter
He can also put counters. Yeah,
on other things too, because why not?
he's a teacher.
He is a teacher. That's true.
It's flavor.
He's an advisor. That's what the lore says.
Yeah, there's no type teacher yet. Creature type teacher. Advisor is the closest they
I
got.
feel like we should do teacher. There's been plenty of teachers. In
Teacher
Magic now.
typal.
Teacher typal. Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
That's fun. Just build a little elementary school.
First up, the professor.
All right, those are the 10 cards we are adding to the deck, bringing the total of this upgrade to $49.75.
We're so good at skirting the line. So good at it. We're like,
nailed it.
We're just going to push this all the way to the edge. And I think all of these cards, you are going to be so happy to draw.
Yeah.
Because they will just turbocharge the crap out of the deck. And all your other cool +1/+1 counter synergies and payoffs are going to work so well with a lot of these.
Yeah, very cool additions. I'm looking forward to seeing them in the deck. But it does mean we have to say goodbye to 10 perfectly good, perfectly happy Magic cards that are being ripped from their deck. That's how I picture cuts, and that's why it's so hard.
This one's not that hard. I'm not sad to see this one go. We're going to start with the big villain from the game, my old man, Sin, Unending Cataclysm. This one is 5 green and blue, 7 mana for 5/5 fly and trample. When it enters, remove all counters from any number of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Could be your stuff, other people's stuff. And enters with X +1/+1 counters, where X is twice the number of counters removed this way. And when it dies, you just shuffle it back in. It's cool flavor. It's like, then it goes away and you don't know when it's going to come back, just like Sin in the game. But at the same time, it's like, well, what did I do all that hard work of putting counters on things for if I'm just going to get this one thing that is so easy for my opponent to blow me out?
Yeah, this is
A single path to exile.
His card
makes
says
this
7 mana, put all my eggs in one basket.
Yeah,
put
which you
all
don't wanna
my
do.
blitz balls in one basket.
Yeah, because then even if you're like, oh, well, I'm scared of getting board wipe, I'm going to put this all on Sin. Well, that doesn't really help, because when it dies, you put all the counters on target creature you control and then shuffle this card away. You're not going to have any creatures if you get board wiped anyway, so just keep them all on the creatures that you already have, put them on some of your flyers, some of the other fun things, and don't waste 7 mana on this guy. He's not that good. Plus, let's kick a villain out of the
out
of the Final Fantasy
We're
X deck.
playing blitzball here.
He's gone.
We're playing blitzball.
Yeah.
All right. Up next is another Final Fantasy card. This one's Yuna's Whistle.
Yeah, this one's 1 green instant. This is a new card as well. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand to rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. When you reveal a creature card this way, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the mana value of that card. This is a weird one.
Very strange. So it's a card that replaces itself with a creature and then also puts +1 some amount of +1/+1 counters onto a creature. It's an instant?
Yeah, it's an instance.
Okay. So
But it's 1 green.
It's also kind of a combat trick, but you're not really sure how it's going to wind up.
Yeah. That's the confusing part is you're like, I could put 2 counters on something, or I could put 5.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
We've got a lot of better ways to put counters on creatures that are cheaper, that have bodies themselves. This is a cantrip that only works if you have a creature in play, and who knows how well it works.
And again, like with the deck, you probably want to have a better spread of counters instead of trying to put a lot of counters on one thing immediately.
Right.
So yeah, it's a little clunky. It's a decently fun card, maybe.
It's her whistle. She's summoning some kind of big creature.
She's summoning Valifor, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, which one's that?
That's the one it's like a big bird type thing. That's kind of like her marquee summon.
Oh, bird friend.
Bird friend.
Okay.
That's
Go
just
birds.
my guess. Go birds. Next up, I don't like cards like this. Chasm Skulker.
Yeah.
It's the 2 and a blue. Whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on this creature, and when this creature dies, put X/1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk onto the battlefield, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on this creature.
Yes. So Chasm
It reads
Skulker,
so good.
It reads really good. It does get very big, and when it dies, it makes a ton of little things. The problem is you don't have a way for it to die.
You're just throwing counters on it and kind of hoping for the best. You're just like saying, because I think what I run into whenever I play cards like this, I'm like, well, do I want to attack with it? And then they chump with a 2/2?
Nope.
No. Okay, do I want to leave it on defense? Well, no one's going to attack me. I mean, sure, I guess that's great that nobody's attacking you.
Yeah.
But you're also not doing the thing.
Right.
So
there's a very interesting moment in the mono blue extra turns where there's multiple Chasm Skulkers on the board.
Yes.
And all the mono blue decks are trying to kill their own Chasm Skulker so they can make all the squids. But it turns into this big counter fight where we're like trying to kill our own creatures. And,
it's on your side of the battlefield.
Yeah,
like
well, it's yours.
Stuff, yeah.
It's ridiculous. And it just shows how hard it is to get maximum advantage of the Chasm Skulker in a deck like this that just doesn't have the sack outlets to reliably kill it.
Exactly. It's a fun reading card, but I don't think it is great.
Also, you should watch that episode. It's bananas.
Definitely.
It's really
that is
fun.
definitely one of the ones where I've been like, Chasm Skulker. This is like one of the more interesting times I've seen it played. Again, was it good? Maybe.
Probably there were better things. All right, up next.
Forgotten Ancient. 3 and a green. Whenever player casts a spell, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put or you may move any number of +1/+1 counters from this creature onto other creatures.
So
Hooray.
Forgotten Ancient is a powerful card. It can make a lot of +1/+1 counters.
Is
but
it though?
You have to wait until your upkeep to distribute those counters, which is really how you want it. And it's sort of a lightning rod.
Yeah.
You rarely see a Forgotten Ancient untap.
I don't like cards like this because they do the thing where it's like, okay, and now I put another counter on it. It's whenever anybody casts a spell. And so people are constantly like, hey, that thing's getting big. And you're like, I have to announce that this thing's getting big.
Yes.
And so
it does feel like you do a trumpet blast and then announce that you're doing stuff. Yeah.
So not only are you just drawing all the attention and putting it onto yourself and having everybody be like, maybe we should kill that or deal with that player. It's also just, it doesn't have evasion. It's not actually that great. Even if this is like a 20/20, like you need other things for it to happen.
You have to have other creatures.
You have to have other creatures. Can this kill people?
Yeah.
Yeah, it can. But I don't know. I just don't think it's quite what we're looking for. And at 4 mana, it's coming down a little bit on the later side.
Yeah.
Not the worst. 4 mana isn't the craziest thing in the world, especially in a Precon environment.
Yeah.
But
we've added some stuff that's a little bit more efficient that does similar things.
I would much rather have Danny Pink or something like that.
Sure.
Or Arwen in the slot instead of Forgotten Ancient.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same reasoning why we cut the next card, Sunscorch Regent. Because, yeah, sure, this one has flying and can gain you some life, but it comes down a turn later and has all the same problems as Forgotten Ancient.
Yeah, this one sets off real alarm bells. It is very difficult to be under the radar with the Sunscorch Regent.
Yeah, I have a friend who this is their favorite card of all time. Has never killed anybody with it. Just never. Because we're like, well, he's going to play the Sunscorch Regent. All right,
it is.
There it is. We wait for it to get big. We kill it.
Yeah.
You have 15 more life. Great. doesn't matter.
The next one that we are cutting from the deck, we've talked about a little bit already. It's Generous Patron. The deck just doesn't have a great way to take advantage of that draw a card ability, and we've added a lot of great card advantage to the deck anyway.
Yeah, I was so excited when I saw that because I was like, oh, well, you can use Titus's ability to move counters onto your opponent's stuff.
You can't.
No, you can't.
No, you
so
can't.
it's literally only just when it enters, you can put something on something else, but you really don't want to be doing that.
Yeah.
So, don't really care. Let's get it out of here. Next up, Path of Discovery. 3 green enchantment. Whenever a creature you control enters, it explores. Explore is reveal a top card of your library, put that card into your hand if it's a land. Otherwise, put a 1/1 counter on that creature, and you can put the card back or put it into your graveyard. So, when I was like, are we really going to cut Path of Discovery? I went back to the Rivals of Exelon set review, the Command Zone Rivals of Exelon set review, and Josh and Jimmy were like, yeah, this is definitely like a staple commander card for sure. And I just think it's crazy that we have come so far that we are, not only is it not a staple, not only are we not playing it, we are cutting it from Precon upgrade.
Yeah, it just doesn't do enough for you. It says whenever you play a creature, you maybe get a counter and you maybe get a card.
The uncertainty of what you're getting, I think, really hurts this because you can't guarantee get that counter unless you've done any other like scrying or top deck manipulation, which there's like a couple of things in the deck, I think, but not really much. And yeah, it's like, well, maybe you get a lands. Maybe you get the counter. Who's to say? It's all up to fate. And yeah, there's a little bit of like, okay, great. I want to leave that there because I want to leave that on top and I want to be able to draw that next. Or, oh, I don't like that. I'll put that into the graveyard.
Not to mention your commander is 3 mana. So you really want to get Path of Discovery down before you start playing creatures, but it's 4 mana. So like your 2-drops that you want in play early, it doesn't work super well because the way that we're developing the deck is you play a creature on 2, you play your commander on 3, and then in turn 4, you play a powerful engine card. So something like Danny Pink or Arwen or any of the payoffs that are in the deck already. And Path of Discovery says, okay, now you can start playing creatures. And you're like,
hold on.
I've already done that.
I was trying to do that before. It just feels so bad to play this on 4. And then on turn 5, you're like, all right, now I'm going to play something that'll actually start doing things.
And like commander decks aren't entirely about their first few turns. I think there's like, especially precons, you draw some cards in the late game and it is, but even in the late game, you still need other creatures after it to do anything.
Yeah, this is such a bad top deck late game too.
Right. So it's like, if we're talking about the zones where Path of Discovery is good, it's a little weird on 4, which is where it's best. and then it continues to get worse as the game goes on. So unfortunately, it just isn't as strong enough of an engine in this deck.
And gone. Next up is Rampant Rejuvenator. This is a 3 green plant hydra. This creature enters with 2 1/1 counters on it. And when this creature dies, search your library for X basic land cards, where X is this creature's power, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. This has very, very similar problems with the Chasm Skulker, is that you cannot control when it's dying. It doesn't have any sort of evasion or anything like that. And it's that 4 mana slots where you're like, I really want to be like actually doing something, not throwing this down, and then maybe proliferating it a couple times or putting everything into the trying to get more counters on this and then trying to figure out how to get this to die so then I can get like 4 basics from my deck.
Right. Like more mana, more good, obviously, but this isn't the kind of deck that needs a ton of mana to function. The curve is relatively low.
Yeah.
So it's not even if it was a landfall deck or something like that, then you're more interested. But
yeah, I think it's just the fact that it says counters on it and something equal to power is why it's in here, but it's just not really all that good.
Yeah. All right. Up next, we cut Yuna's whistle. Now we're cutting Yuna's decision.
Oh.
Sorry, Yuna.
Sad. So this is a key moment in the game where Yuna's like, oh no, not everything is exactly as I thought it was. There's all these problems in the
Blitzball
church. No, not Blitzball. It's not a church, but like Yevon priests are corrupt or whatever, something like that. Anyway, so she's like, oh man, things are not as they were. So should I continue my pilgrimage or not? And so this is 3 green. You can choose one. To continue the pilgrimage, you sacrifice a creature. If you do draw a card, then you may put a creature card and or a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Spoiler alert, a little bit. If you make it to the end of the pilgrimage, somebody important to your party is going to die. So very flavorful, very cool. Or you can find another way, which is return 1 or 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. Which, yeah, this is a really cool, flavorful card. It's also just not that good and doesn't do much for the deck.
Yeah. It's cheating something into play isn't great when we just cut one of the biggest top end cards.
And if you're cheating that into play, like, is that really what you want to be doing early? Not really.
Yeah. And recursion cards, I think, are the best when they're cheap because then you can cast the thing that you just got back from your graveyard. So 4 mana is a lot.
If you're really attached to it and leave this in, it will technically do things, but I don't think it's good enough.
Okay. Up next.
Gata and Luzo. So this is 2 and a white flash. When it enters, choose target creature you control. If damage would be dealt to that creature this turn, prevent that damage and put that many 1/1 counters on it. The damage stuff just doesn't really matter. Like, your stuff is probably going to get so big fast enough that you don't really need an effect like this. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of whatever.
Can it do this to itself? Choose target. Yes, it can. Choose target creature you control.
It could be a blocker. It can be a surprise blocker. So
okay. It's like Selfless Squire,
yeah,
where it can really goof somebody, but it's one of those things where it only stops one creature, and it's really bad against trample, which is where this kind of effect is best.
Yes, you want to block one big thing, and oftentimes that one big thing does have trample. Because otherwise, like, you probably just have like a bunch of 4/4s, and are they really attacking you with something big that doesn't have trample? Probably not.
Probably not. This is a creature deck, so it's very, very narrow, and not to mention this deck isn't great at holding its mana open.
That I was going to say that as well, is because like the way that the deck wants to operate is you're trying to do as much stuff pre-combats, so that then you get as much value and as much advantage from your commander's abilities as possible. Meaning you're probably not going to be leaving up 3 mana in defense mode all that much.
Yeah.
So, alas. Bye-bye.
We got rid of Gata and Lusa. All right, those are the cards. They're gone. Whew. We'll play a sad parting song for them.
We'll perform a summoning or sending. That's what it's called. Yeah, that's
summoning. We summoned the other one.
We summoned the other one. The sending is where you take all the dead people and send them to the afterlife, basically.
Cards to send.
That's what Yuna's doing. There's like summoner sending is in the deck. That's what Yuna's doing in her image, I'm pretty sure.
He's sending people to the underworld?
Well, to the afterlife, yeah. Because otherwise their souls are stuck in Spira.
Sure, don't want
She's performing a service. Like, people are glad when she shows up and is like, get these dead souls out of here. It's pretty somber, pretty sad, but...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. Well...
A moment of silence for our departed cards that we cut. Stop laughing.
Murph, you're being disrespectful.
I'm sorry.
All right, we've summoned 10 cards. We have sent 10 cards.
There we go.
It's time
just done
to
that.
It's time to talk about how this deck plays now. We've talked a lot about the expected curve of this deck. We really want to make sure there's a creature on 2 with a counter. Then your commander comes down and draws you a card and starts proliferating. You want to be applying pressure and making sure that you've got that engine going as fast as possible. But what are some things that you want people to keep in mind, or things that you think would happen a little in the later game?
I think, like you said, when we are mulliganing with this deck, is you want to try to be able to start triggering your commander probably by turn 4. Turn 3 is the best, but this is...
With the tapped lands.
You got a tap land. This is still a precon environment, and your mana base is not going to be the greatest thing in the world. So saying that we're going to get something out on 2 and then commander on 3 every single time you play this deck, not all that realistic.
Sure, yeah.
You try for it, but if you can't get it, that's fine. Doing it on 4 is still reasonable because you want something as early as you can to get counters. Everything revolves around getting counters onto things and moving those things around. And because of that, just having
the ball.
Yeah, you got to have the ball in play ASAP. If you're doing all setup pieces and you're not able to be proliferating or moving things around, you are just missing out on a lot of value that this commander provides.
Yeah.
And so you try to get that out as much as possible. And ideally, you want to try to protect Titus because he is kind of like a big part of your engine.
He's super powerful.
He's very powerful. He does a lot. I do foresee that he's going to be drawing some to a lot of hate because just of how much weight he pulls in the deck. And you just have to be prepared for that. It's okay if he dies once. It's probably worth it to recast him, assuming you have something that has counters on it already. If he dies, you kind of do the same thing where you just get something with counters out and then figure out a slot where you can recast them again.
Right. The second time you cast him, you want him to be even more impactful.
Exactly. But that's why the things like the indestructible counters, trying to get those onto Titus as quickly as possible, I think is also very, very useful because that'll just keep people from just picking him off. He is a 3/3, can die to a lot of different things. So yeah, just try to be aware of, hey, he's a lot of your deck's power. So try to keep him around as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, there's plenty
He's the
of
team captain.
Exactly.
I assume.
Yes, of the Xanarkand Abes.
Abes?
Xanarkand Abes. That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. And then I think the traditional greeting is like you do this and then you bow. This is definitely helpful for all our audio podcast listeners.
Yeah. No, you made the sound effects. They know.
Perfect.
All right, that is the Counter Blitz deck. It's got a lot of going wide. It's got a lot of proliferating. I love the +1/+1 counters, like passing the thing around to get other teammates involved. It feels very, it's very Blitzball focused, obviously, this metaphor. But
Oh, also, when you need to get to endgame, there are some cards in here that say creatures with +1/+1 counters on them have trample, which is good. There's a couple of those. There's a card that's whenever a creature with a 1/1 counter on it, those have double strike. So there are plenty of ways. There's a flying counters that you can put on things
to push over
over damage. So I won't worry so much about trying to get that. That will just kind of come as the deck plays.
And with those kind of things, you play those last.
Yes.
Once you have the board.
Hang on to those until you can start actually doing things with them.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just going to be a target and people will try to kill you ASAP.
Yeah, the order is small creatures that get value from counters, commander that benefits and gives you cards, and then haymakers that close
more acceleration pieces.
Yeah, that close the door. Oh well, yeah, you want like stronger value engines, and then you want your trample and flying and double strike and ways to be all scary all at once. All right, that is Counter Blitz. To the listeners, what do you think of this precon? Any of the cards that we missed to add to the deck that you're like, what? You've got to put in the Felwar Stone that's shaped like a football. Is that what a Blitzball looks like?
No, not at all. It's like this. It's a round ball that has like bumps on it. Yeah. Why? I don't actually know. Maybe it's to help it go through the water because you played in the water.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like a big sphere filled with
water.
water.
I had no idea it was in the water.
It's in the water. Well, that's why Blitzball.
Like water polo where they're swimming or like underwater?
Underwater.
Whoa.
I actually don't know how they breathe underwater now that you think of it. Now that I think of it, because they are underwater like most of the time. I don't remember if they explained it or not. If they
Magic.
If they did, I certainly was not paying attention to that part.
Magic. Any cards we suggested to take out or add that you disagree with this deck. If you want to pick up any of the cards that we talk about here today, Final Fantasy is still in pre-order mode. Obviously, we're very early in the spoiler season, but we wanted to make sure that when you guys are excited about this deck, we get these upgrades out to you. So go to cardkingdom.com/command and you can pick up any of the cards that we talked about for this upgrade. Pick those up as soon as possible. Those prices tend to fluctuate depending on how popular this deck is, and Final Fantasy X is a popular one.
Go play Final Fantasy X.
Yeah, go play Final Fantasy X. I don't think you can get that at Card Kingdom, but they have everything else that you're looking for. They've got a ton of singles. They've got a ton of different printings, a ton of different conditions. If you're building a new deck, it's a great place to start. Just dump your list into their mass shopping tool, and you can pick which version of each card you want, and they can get a ton of cards shipped to you in one package, and they'll ship them safely. There's nothing worse than if a card shows up in the mail and it's damaged or it's been packaged poorly, and we trust Card Kingdom to get those delicate pieces of cardboard to you safely. So again, cardkingdom.com/command. And then once you have those cards, it's time to sleeve them up, put them in a deck box, go to ultrapro.com/command for the highest quality Magic accessories in the business. If you're like me and you're sorting your collection, you can check out the new Mana Aid storage line, all those cool long boxes that are one in each color. There's also a bigger deck box that holds multiple decks. So if you're the kind of person that likes to have sort of a big suitcase style one, Murphy's
that's how
got
I
one
like
of
to
those.
do things. Yeah, I definitely have to try this stuff out.
It's really nice. And they're bright white and they look really really, really sharp like the rest of their Mana 8 line. MagicCon is coming up. We always recommend Mana 8 playmats for MagicCons because they're bright and they're white and there's a ton of space to draw on and get signatures and really turn this like super clean playmat into a memory. It's great for signing because just everything's legible and then you can take it to artists to have them do little doodles on and you can see it and you're not worried about your silver marker working, which is our personal nightmare at these things. But go to ultrapro.com/command and they'll get you set up for your next game night or MagicCon maybe. And hopefully you're coming to MagicCon. We'll see you there. We're doing game nights live. It's going to be very exciting. It's on Friday. You don't need any additional tickets. You just need a pass that'll get you onto the floor on Friday.
It'll be a good time.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. If you haven't seen it yet, it's one of our favorite times of the year is getting to do Game Nights Live for all of y'all. So come say hi. There will also be signings and we'll be on the floor and MagicCon's a great time. So we'll see you there. Before we go, it's time to say thank you to our amazing team here at the Command Zone who make this episode and all episodes like it possible. Thank you to Rachel Kender, Karina Cruz, Christopher Matista, Sebastian Salazar, Gaurav Galati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridgeon, Jake Boss, Eric Lem, Manson Lung, Evan Limburger, Sam Waldo, Josh Lequai, Jimmy Wong, and to Josh Murphy for talking about Blitzball with me here today, for upgrading this Precon. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, even though Blitzball is still kind of mid. Sorry, not sorry.
Get him in the comments. To the listeners, get him.
To the listeners, comments, tell me why I'm wrong.
To the listeners, get him is my new favorite.
That's going to be my next fantasy football team.
Get him.
Or fantasy blitzball team.
Oh! We're going to have to figure out how they swim underwater without breathing. I need some research. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.